All right. Welcome to Frolic Harder, and welcome to For the Haters 2 Bat Nips.
Oh yeah, I love just bat nips. Everybody's immediately going to know what we're talking about as soon as you're like, "For the Haters Part 2 Bat Nips."
I hope
There's
so.
there's only one, technically two ways that this could go. There's two movies, but we're going to focus today.
Hold, please.
I'm holding.
I'm good at this now.
Oh,
I don't want to get you too far.
oh wait, I'm gonna let you finish, but
My name is Matt.
I'm Brennan.
This is my co-host. We're the dynamic duo, and he's Brendan, as he said.
Like Batman and Robin.
Exactly. And as always, joined by our Alfred, producer John.
Producer Moo.
Producer Moo. Hi, producer Moo.
Hi.
And before we get started, make sure this audio makes it in, producer John.
Will do, sir.
Oh, wait. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
That's refreshing. What are you drinking?
You're not gonna like it. I got
not.
another nice pickle beer.
Oh, you're so weird, man.
This one is Tropical Punch.
Fair enough. That's the sound of pickle beer. That's the sound of someone enjoying pickle beer.
That sounds delicious. I want some.
It's really good, actually.
You sound refreshed.
If we can get a pickle beer sponsorship, I'm all for it.
Pretty sweet.
Make it happen, producer John.
Frolic Harder, brought to you by Pickle Beer.
Brought to you by Pickle Beer.
Hold that can up. We just gotta post that to Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Just get the cameo in there. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
We'll at them later.
All right.
Back to nipples.
Back to
Or bat nipples.
Bipples? Maybe they're Bipples.
They're definitely bipples.
Bipples. That should be the name of this episode now.
You ever seen a good bipple?
I mean, I've seen them on screen a few times here. We're going to talk about them.
Let's hear about it.
We got some Bipples. So we're going to talk about Batman Forever today. It's one of those movies where you grew up watching it in the 90s. You loved it. You hated it. Some people hated it more than others. Some people loved it. I mean, how did you feel about Batman Forever?
Well, here's the thing. Like you said, we saw this movie growing up.
Yes.
So I didn't hate it.
I didn't either. It's got like a nostalgia factor for me.
Yeah. So at the time, like whatever young age we were, it was a phenomenal movie.
It really was. Like
Jim Carrey.
Why? Oh, why?
And this was after we had already seen him in like your Ace Venturas.
Yeah. He was like, Jim Carrey was at the peak in the mid-90s when this movie was made.
And they were able to lock him up in Batman.
Right. I mean, this guy was all over the place. We'll talk about him in here. We'll get to him. But
And if anyone hasn't noticed, this is sort of like our ongoing series of it's essentially the most hated movie in a, what would you say, like a
I think it's just movies that people just have not appreciated as much as others. So
the haters.
Why it's the haters. It's the trolls. It's the haters. It's like people like to hate things just for the sake of they think it's like trendy to hate it. Just
it's
like the same thing as like people are like there's food trends. It's like, oh yeah, everybody loves this, so now I love it. No, it's not the way it works. These are just some movies just didn't rub people the right way. And that this will be an ongoing series, most likely just going to be movies. So back on target here. So Batman Forever, we all grew up with. Really, really fantastic movie. If you ever go rewatch it, it's so campy, it's so corny. There's costumes are cheesy. There's a bat suit with nipples on it that carried over into George Clooney's Batman as well. So we're going to touch on a little bit of that today, but let's cover Batman Forever here and just start from the beginning. So on screen, it was literally just known as Forever. Batman Forever was like a kind of a worldwide community name for it, but it's inside Hollywood. It's just known as Forever. So
Did not know that.
I didn't either. So that was news to me. So it came out in 1995. So right peak mid-90s, like we were talking about, like Jim Carrey and all that, just peak Hollywood, peak stardom, popularity. Obviously a superhero movie directed by Joel Schumacher and produced by Tim Burton. So I totally forgot that Tim Burton still produced this one after he did the first two with Michael Keaton, which are, obviously different style completely.
Oh yeah.
But you could tell. So this is Schumacher's movie. So Batman was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Was the third installment of the Warner Brothers initial Batman film series. It is the direct sequel to Batman Returns. So I didn't know that was one continuous story until reading into this, but I thought it was just like Keaton's Batman, Val Kilmer's Batman. Yeah. It's actually all part of the same like world universe.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that as a kid.
Exactly. I didn't consider that as an adult. So
true.
Yeah, Val Kilmer just replaced Michael Keaton, and it's the same like series. So it is the third like of that series. So obviously Val Kilmer replaced Keaton as Batman. Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, Nicole Kidman, all these folks pouring in here. Actually has a pretty star-studded cast. Plot mostly focused on Batman trying to stop Two-Face and the Riddler in their scheme to extract information from all the minds of the folks in Gotham City while adopting an orphaned acrobat named Dick Grayson. Also, obviously, became his sidekick.
And also important, he didn't adopt a small child like in the comics. He adopted like a 32-year-old man
playing a teenager,
playing like a 14-year-old.
It really was like. He just showed up at Batman's door and he's like, "Will you dab me?" And he's like, "Okay, sure."
I don't know if you have this like further in your notes, but do you remember the like laundry scene?
I do remember the laundry scene, and
so,
it is not in my notes. So go ahead. You can take it.
If people don't remember this, essentially this 14-year-old, 32-year-old man decides to do his laundry one day and this is, I don't know why important to the story because he's a badass, I guess. It was supposed to show you. He does his laundry. When pulling it out of, apparently this washer in Wayne Manor has no spin cycle because that shit was soaking wet.
Really
and they show him like doing like nunchuck moves with his like heavy wool socks, and then like
whipping them up on a clothesline, right?
And like wringing them out, and it's just like dripping water all over the floor. Yeah, but then he's like whipping them onto the clothesline.
It felt very Three Ninjas, like when we were a kid. It was like some little child just playing nunchucks with his socks, like you were saying. So, you don't know how hard I've been training, so let me show you. Imagine the choreography. Like, the director's like, "We've got this laundry choreography scene coming up."
They're like, "Do you want to show him like actually training, like in a karate studio or something?" Like, no. I got something better.
Guys, hear me out. It's gonna be like a dojo, but a laundry room instead, and not nunchucks and socks instead of that.
Yeah. So now 98-year-old Alfred has to go in there with his mop and bucket,
mop that shit up,
clean up all that water.
Trash ass Dick Grayson comes in and just makes us just a mess everywhere. But Alfred just like he's always like that guy. He's like Butters from like South Park. He just has to clean up everybody else's mess.
And this was by far the oldest Alfred.
Oh God, he was
this guy was so old.
He was really old. So
producer John, find that guy's name. I want to give him a shout out.
I'll get to it.
I got it. Okay. Never.
Don't you worry.
He's on it.
As far as who Alfred was, it was his name here in my notes was Michael Goff.
Shout out Michael Goff.
Michael Goff was
he's still alive? Is he still with us?
He is long gone.
Like
you said, he was ancient in 95. So getting back on track. So Batman adopts 32-year-old, 14-year-old Dick Grayson. And obviously developed feelings for psychologist Dr. Chase Meridian. Director Schumacher mostly eschewed the dark dystopian atmosphere of Tim Burton's films by drawing inspiration from the Batman iconic books of the Dick Sprang era, as well as the 60s television series, after Keaton chose not to reprise the role. William Baldwin and Ethan Hawke were also considered as replacements before Val Kilmer was cast as Batman. So could you imagine like
Ethan Hawke would have been
one of the
young
Baldwin
then, right?
brothers?
Yeah, how old is Ethan Hawke now?
He's pretty old now. He played the older gentleman in Moon Knight recently.
Yeah, he was good.
He's
I feel like he would have been really young when Batman came out. I guess Kilmer was too, though. Technically,
yeah, it's true.
And William Baldwin, I believe, is that the Backdraft Baldwin?
No,
that was Billy.
No, that was I think that was Billy.
Which I guess is William is Billy.
It's just one of the Baldwin brothers.
Okay.
There we go.
Goddamn Baldwins.
I know. So the movie was released on June 16 of 95, got mixed reviews from critics. A lot of them praised the visuals and some of the performances, but criticized the CGI, costume designs, and tonal departure from the previous films because it was not Tim Burton's movie. He was just producing
Like campier.
Yeah, a lot campier.
A lot of neon.
Yep, a lot of neon tones. That was a point in the movie also from the new director there. The film was definitely a box office success, though. Grossed over $336 million worldwide before becoming the sixth highest grossing film of 95, also followed by Batman and Robin in 97. That was with Clooney. Chris O'Donnell definitely came back as Robin, and Val Kilmer was like, I'm done with the nipples, cast someone else. So George Clooney took over from that. Just to sum up like the main cast of the movie, I kind of said it was a star-studded cast before, which it really, really was. Val Kilmer obviously is Batman and Bruce Wayne. Tommy Lee Jones is Harvey Dent and Two-Face. Jim Carrey is Edward Nygma, the Riddler. Nicole Kidman playing Chase Meridian obviously was recast from the Michael Keaton original series because the original actress was considered too old. So they went with a younger direction. Chris O'Donnell coming in as Dick Grayson, Robin. Michael Goff, we talked about, as Alfred Pennyworth. Pat Hingle was James Gordon in this one. George Wallace was the mayor of Gotham City. Drew Barrymore, let's not forget, she was Sugar,
yes,
one of Two-Face's, the angelic assistant.
Yes,
with Debbie Mazur playing Two-Face's bad or gothic, assistant / girlfriend. And another guy I'm going to hit you with that I didn't know was in this movie, Jon Favreau was in Batman Forever. The Jon Favreau that is running like this directed Iron Man, Star Wars.
Run it through my head right now.
Yeah,
who was he?
I will get to that at a later kind of facts-driven part.
I'm very excited.
It wasn't a big role, but Jon Favreau was in the movie. So we're going to talk about casting here and how that went, because it was definitely a lot of interesting choices that could have been in this movie that would have totally taken this in a different direction. So the production department went on fast track with Rene Russo cast as Chase Meridian in the original series. But when Michael Keaton decided not to come back as Batman, he did not like the direction that this series was headed in and said, I am out. So Keaton wanted to pursue more interesting roles and turned down $15 million for this movie. So yeah, it was back in 95. That was a lot of money, 15 mil to play Batman. And he shook his head and said no. Decision was made to go with a younger actor for Bruce Wayne after Michael Keaton turned it down. An offer was made to Ethan Hawke, who turned it down. Ethan Hawke went on to later say he regretted the decision and would have loved to play Batman. So kind of hindsight is 2020 there. Director Schumacher had seen Val Kilmer in Tombstone, but was also interested in Keanu Reeves, who would later play the voice of Batman / Bruce Wayne in the DC League of Super Pets in 2022. So
he was great. Good movie.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is Batman in that one. Alec and William Baldwin, Dean Cain, Tom Hanks, Kurt Russell, and Ray Fiennes, who would later voice Alfred Pennyworth in the Lego Batman movie, were all considered as well. Daniel Day-Lewis and Johnny Depp were also up for the casting. Could you imagine Daniel Day-Lewis with Batman?
I was just trying to imagine that. That would be incredible.
It would be just so good. So good.
There's still time.
Dean Cain was scrapped as well because as he was well known for starring in TV series Lois and Clark. They said that it was you can't be in Superman and Batman. I don't know. In today's world of cinematic universes, it would have been better accepted. But then there was Val Kilmer, who as a child visited the studios where the 1960 series was recorded. And shortly before, he had visited a bat cave in Africa. So he was all batted up and ready to go. Val Kilmer was contacted by his agent for the role. Kilmer signed on without even reading the script or knowing who the director was. So he was all batted up, went to the caves in Africa. He was just ready to go. So they were just you want to play Batman? He just went, yep. No, no question. Don't care who's writing it. Don't care who's directing it. Don't need to see the script. I get to be Batman. So great job.
Good on him.
Yeah, way to step up. So with Kilmer's casting, Warner Brothers dropped Russo, considering her, like I said, too old to be paired with Kilmer. Sandra Bullock, Robin Wright, Jeannie Templeton, and Linda Hamilton were all considered for her role, which was eventually recast with Nicole Kidman. So there was really like a lot of actors and actresses
Right.
that were, like up in this movie that I didn't like know that
I
they
had
had a shot.
no clue about most of these.
Like Linda Hamilton, it would have been
Yeah.
so weird. Billy D. Williams took the role of Harvey Dent in Batman on the possibility of portraying Two-Face in a sequel. But Schumacher cast Tommy Lee Jones in the role, although Al Pacino, Clint Eastwood, Martin Sheen, and Robert De Niro were all considered for Harvey Dent or Two-Face.
Ooh,
Yeah, like could you imagine Al Pacino just like, Batman? Like,
I can't imagine it.
So good.
So far in our Batman movie, and I think they're doing so many now, we might have a chance.
Yeah.
We're gonna have Daniel Day-Lewis as Batman, Al Pacino as Harvey Dent Two-Face.
I like it.
All right, let's keep going.
Tommy Lee Jones was really reluctant to accept the role of Two-Face, but did so only because of his son's insistence. So he was like, "No, I don't want to do that stupid Two-Face thing." And his son was like, "But Dad, superhero movie, you get to be a villain." So he did it. Robin Williams was in discussions to be the Riddler at one point and was reportedly in competition for the role with John Malkovich. So that was interesting. In June of 1994, the role was given to Jim Carrey after Williams had reportedly turned down the role. So Robin Williams was originally offered the role of Riddler. In a 2003 interview, Schumacher stated that Michael Jackson had lobbied hard to be the Riddler, but was turned down before Carrey was cast. Could you imagine, like, we've got like
that just changes
and
the
then
mood.
Riddler's like so that would have been I guess he was really, really pushing for it. And they're like, nah, we're good on the Michael Jackson thing, because he was never considered a good actor.
Producer John needs to find a way to, just clip all these different actors together into a Batman movie for us.
Yeah,
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
So there was Brad Dourif, who was Tim Burton's original choice to portray the Joker and Scarecrow after. Kelsey Grammer. Huh? Brad Dourif?
Who is that? Yeah.
He's an actor.
Oh, who is he, though?
I don't know. Not a familiar name
John,
to me.
do your thing.
Brad Dourif. Dourif. I'm going to keep going here. So he was, like I said, the original choice of Tim Burton for the Joker and Scarecrow after that. Kelsey Grammer, Mickey Dolenz, Matthew Broderick, Phil Hartman, Steve Martin, Adam Sandler, and Rob Schneider were also considered.
Oh, for Adam Sandler.
Could you imagine, like some of these choices? Like, I had no idea there was this many like A-list actors and actresses.
This is insane.
Right. Yeah. Like,
it's pretty much
these roles.
Just anyone they could think of.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was like, I'm doing a segment specifically on the casting and how wild this could have been. Robin Williams had appeared in the shooting script for Batman Returns, but was deleted due to having too many characters. Marlon Wayans had also been cast in the role and signed in for a potential sequel, but when Schumer took over, he decided to open up the casting to other actors. Leonardo DiCaprio was also considered, but decided not to pursue the role after meeting with Schumacher. This is good, though. Matt Damon, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, Mark Wahlberg, Michael Worth, Danny Dyer, Toby Stevens, Ewan McGregor, Jude Law, Alan Cumming, and Christian Bale were all up for Batman as well. So
no Affleck?
No Batfleck at this point.
Damn.
Scott Speedman was also later to be rumored as part of the consideration. So that would have been just a tragic casting, I think, if they got Scott Speedman in there. He's had better days neither before or ahead of him. He was just always kind of a middle of the road guy to me. Chris O'Donnell was cast, and Mitch Gaylord was served as his stunt double. Also, Mitch Gaylord, the guy that was O'Donnell's stunt double, also was in the movie as Dick's older brother, Mitch Grayson. So they basically wrote that point specifically for him because they really liked having him on set that much. So like, we're just going to give you an actual part in this movie. While he was still O'Donnell's stunt double. Schumacher attempted to create a cameo role for Bono from U2 as his Macfisto character. But but both came to agree it was not suitable at the time. So quite the wide array of casting options and possibilities that could have been, would have been. I definitely think that they went with the right direction with the people that they brought in. It's hard to imagine this movie going in a different direction that it actually went in from what we remember. There was, however, some trouble on the set in Gotham City, if you will.
I was hoping you were going to talk about this.
I know you know. I think you know what I'm going to bring up here.
Yeah.
So we'll get to it here. So Schumacher and Kilmer definitely clashed while they were making Batman Forever. Schumacher described Kilmer as being exceptionally childish and impossible, reporting that he fought with various crewmen and refused to speak to Schumacher for 2 weeks while filming the movie. Could you imagine like your lead actor not talking to the director for 2 whole weeks while you're creating a movie? He's just like, action, and he's like, yeah, whatever.
he's the Iceman.
He really is, though. So basically, after the director told him to stop being so rude, he finally did. They came to an agreement to speak again. Schumacher also mentioned, I think this is what you wanted to hear, that Tommy Lee Jones, as a source of trouble on the set, thought Jim Carrey, though Schumacher said Jim Carrey was a gentleman and Tommy Lee was threatened by him, saying, I'm tired of defending overpaid, overprivileged actors. I pray I don't work with them ever again. Jim Carrey later acknowledged that Tommy Lee Jones was just a dick to him on set, telling him once offset production, I think this is what you were waiting to hear.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee told Jim Carrey, I hate you. I really don't like you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery. So that was one of my favorite things. Like, I would just love to hear Tommy Lee Jones tell Jim Carrey, I will not sanction this kind of buffoonery. Like,
aside from this quote, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say buffoonery.
Right. It was so good. And I
know of the word, and I've never heard anyone use it.
When I hear that whole line, like, I cannot sanction your buffoonery, I hear it in
his voice,
Tommy Lee Jones's voice. Yeah. So some other box office notes I have, just because of how like record breaking this movie was at the time for money. Batman Forever opened to in a record 2,842 theaters and 4,300 screens just in the United States and Canada on June 16th of 95, grossing $52.8 million in its opening weekend, breaking Jurassic Park's record for highest opening gross of all time. It was surpassed 2 years later by The Lost World, which I think we're going to be touching on that.
I will be covering that one.
For the haters, this might be for the haters part 3. So here's a little sneak peek, everybody. You will get Jurassic Park: The Lost World at some point. For 6 years, it had been the largest opening weekend for a Warner Brothers film until 2001, when it was surpassed by none other than Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know. That's why I was like, here we go. No, Matt's going to be all pissy about it.
No, I said I'm holding off my slander for a little while.
For now, you are.
For now.
Because of Hagrid's untimely passing.
That's right. Best part of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. I said it. I got a soft spot.
It's fair. The film also achieved the highest June opening weekend, holding that record until it was beaten by Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me in 1999, and Hulk 4 years later in 2003. It was the first film to gross $20 million in one day on its opening day on Friday. It grossed $77.4 million in the first week, which was below the record of $81.7 million set by Jurassic Park. Additionally, the film held the record for having the highest opening weekend for a superhero film until it was taken by X-Men in 2000. That year, How the Grinch Stole Christmas took Batman Forever's record for scoring the biggest opening weekend for any Jim Carrey movie, while the film was overtaken by Pocahontas during its second weekend. Really, this is really aging the movie.
Right?
It still made $29.2 million and then became the first film of 95 to reach $100 million domestically. The film started its international rollout in Japan of June 17th of 95, so just after the US release. Grossed $2.2 million in 5 days from 167 screens, so not a lot, which was only 80% of the gross of its predecessor, Batman Returns. The film went on to gross $184 million in the US and Canada and $152.5 million in other countries, totaling that number I stated earlier in the episode of $336.53 million. Film grossed more than Batman Returns and is the highest grossing film from 1995 in the US. So really good numbers there for the time. Extrapolate that to like 2022, probably made like close to $1 billion.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the closing segment of this episode. Just some off the wall facts about the movie. Maybe people didn't know here. So we're going to start off with Tim Burton strongly opposed the title of the movie, saying, I always hated those titles like Batman Forever. Burton said, sounds like a tattoo that somebody would get or something some kid would write in a yearbook. Just Batman Forever. So Tim Burton was not a fan, but he only produced the movie and had no say in what the title was. Scarecrow was originally one of the villains in the movie. The Batman Forever, we all know today, sees the Dark Knight do battle with two of his greatest foes, Two-Face and the Riddler. This wasn't always the plan, though. In the initial draft of the screenplay by Lee Batchelor and Janet Scott Batchelor, the plan had been for the Riddler to have a different partner in crime from Batman's famous rogues gallery, the Scarecrow. However, when Schumacher signed on to direct the film, he hired Akiva Goldsman to rewrite the script completely. Scarecrow was disregarded immediately. So basically, they just saw that and said, first thing's going to Scarecrow, along with the original planned return of Catwoman, who was supposed to be in it as well. Ultimately, Scarecrow would not appear in live action until 2006 with Batman Begins, with Cillian Murphy playing the role opposite Christian Bale. So I honestly think that, personally, the Christian Bale trilogy is my favorite.
Yeah.
It's so good. The Dark Knight is probably the best superhero movie ever made, in my personal opinion. There is a longer and darker version of the film that to this day may still be released.
I need that.
Batman Forever hasn't always been too well regarded by fans of the franchise, with many having complained that it's too lighthearted, commercialized, campy. However, the film was released into cinemas and for home entertainment, said to be very different from Joel Schumacher's original director's cut, which was reportedly much darker. While the released film is 2 hours long, Schumacher's final cut ran 40 minutes longer. So there is still 40 minutes of content out there that we have not seen for the director's cut. It's possible the cut of Batman Forever can still be released. The rumor has it that Warner Brothers considered putting it out on DVD back in 2005 to mark the film's 10th anniversary. But since Schumacher's death in June of 2020, some fans have been rallying again for Warner Brothers to release the director's cut. So basically they're saying, in honor of the director passing away, we want to see the full movie. I would absolutely, like you said, I'd love to see that, like a darker version of Batman Forever.
I can't imagine what it would be.
I don't know. I assume
it's so campy.
Do you think it would be like more like Christopher Nolan style?
I mean, the Burton ones, I guess, were like fairly dark for the time. Like, is it?
They were both dark and campy, I think.
Yeah,
it had a definitely like. Tim Burton has a style.
It's the Burton style, yeah. It's like gothic horror.
Yeah, Danny DeVito eating the fish and the blood coming out of his.
Like, yeah,
it was pretty.
It bites
brutal.
the dude's nose.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
100%. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is how Chris O'Donnell crashed the Batmobile. I did not actually know this happened for real. So after Chris O'Donnell's orphan acrobat Dick Grayson is taken in by Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne, it's not long before the young scamp discovers his new guardian's secret identity, which, as we remember, happened pretty fast in the movie. He's like, oh, wait, oh, you're Batman, like 5 minutes in. So naturally, he takes the Batmobile out for a joyride. Chris O'Donnell actually demanded to be allowed to do all of his own driving stunts. But just as Dick Grayson lands in trouble for taking the Batmobile in the movie, so did Chris O'Donnell. Bit off a little bit more he could chew with this one. The actor accidentally wound up crashing the expensive vehicle into a curb, severely denting a fender in the process. Luckily, nobody was injured in Chris O'Donnell's buffoonery. And his buffoonery.
Oh, I will not stand for his buffoonery.
I cannot sanction his buffoonery. Like, here we go. I'm going to talk about Jon Favreau here. So he got an early role in the movie. A minor supporting role in Batman Forever wound up having a monumental impact on his superhero movies, though. So Jon Favreau at the time was 29 years old. He was just kind of an actor going from small role to small role. Favreau briefly appeared in the movie as an unnamed assistant in Bruce Wayne's. He could be seen in to the right of Val Kilmer in the lab sequence where Bruce Wayne meets Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma for the first time.
Okay.
So if you go back and watch that movie, when he first meets Edward Nygma, look to Batman, like what we're seeing on the right-hand side, you'll see Favreau following him around as an assistant. So it is a very, very minor role, but Favreau has crossed from the DC universe to the MCU.
Good for him.
Good for him. What a come up, right? Go from DC to Marvel.
For
real. As you'll probably remember, the soundtrack of the album was just ridiculously huge.
Seal Baby, Kiss from a Rose. We got some Offspring on there, if I remember correctly.
Here's the thing, though. It was a huge soundtrack, but even though there were only 5 songs from the soundtrack were actually in the film. Only 5 on the entire album. It was a little neat way to put together soundtracks, like young people would buy them. Like it wasn't really a thing they did prior to that, was releasing like movie soundtracks. So Batman Forever was in the forefront of that. So you used to go down to your Sam Goody and get your cassette tapes back in 95, or at the time, if you were ahead of the curve, your CDs at 90 and 95.
I got my CD from Warehouse Music.
I remember Warehouse. Did you have the Batman Forever soundtrack?
I did.
Nice.
I did.
It's a good one.
I also have, I think my parents got it for me. The original Batman, the Keaton one. I have the Prince. I guess it was all Prince soundtrack, if you remember. Have it on cassette tape.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. What a throwback. What a relic. That belongs in a museum at this point.
It truly does.
So the album was filled with music, both featured in the film and music allegedly inspired by the film. Such was the case on Batman's Forever's commercially released soundtrack album, which enjoyed double platinum sales. That went double platinum. Inspired
by, essentially, this was the precursor to like the Black Panther Kendrick Lamar album. Yeah. And the new one that just came out.
Exactly.
Thank you, Batman Forever.
Right. It's paving the way for everybody. So like I stated, only 5 of the songs on the album were actually included in the movie, including U2's Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, and Seal's Kiss from a Rose. Our other artists went on to feature on the Batman soundtrack, though not necessarily in the movie itself, included PJ Harvey, Nick Cave, and Michael Hutchence of In Excess. So nice little soundtrack there.
It was a good one.
Jim Carrey's Riddler haircut plans were changed due to his impending divorce. Carrey had a hand in designing the Riddler costumes for Batman Forever, which I didn't know. He had all his own input on his costume. Stuck to the lime green color scheme and the question mark motif associated with the character, most famously from Frank Gerson's take on the 60s Batman show. At one point, Jim Carrey had another idea for the character, and that was to shave a question mark shape into his hair. But that haircut idea was abandoned due to the circumstances of his own private life. Carrey was going through a divorce at the time and needed to appear in court as part of these proceedings, and felt like the question mark shaved into the head was a bit much for real life legal issues. So
I feel like they would be somewhat understanding of that.
Yeah, basically Jim Carrey just said that showing up to court with a question mark shaved into his head probably wouldn't go down well. So Val Kilmer shot the movie back to back with Heat, which was a great movie. If you haven't seen
Al Pacino.
Heat, go on. Yeah. Ooh-ah.
Ooh-ah.
Although Batman Forever isn't generally held up as one of Kilmer's best films, the actor shot the film Heat immediately before starting work on what would become to be regarded one of his career highlights. Heat writer-director Michael Mann's epic crime drama centered around Al Pacino. As an LAPD detective determined to take down Robert De Niro's bank robber, Kilmer takes on a key supporting role in Heat as Chris Shiherlis, I think was his last name, the right-hand man of De Niro's Neil McCauley. Production on Heat and Batman Forever was so close that at first look, it looked like Kilmer could not do both films. He'd have to pick one or the other until his schedule was carefully rearranged. Interestingly, Keanu Reeves, also a contender to play Batman in Batman Forever, was the second choice behind Kilmer in Heat as well.
Oh.
So Keanu Reeves always the bridesmaid, never the bride in the mid 90s there, aside from he was doing like Bill and Ted, a couple other things. But yeah, he was taking a back seat to Val Kilmer.
Point Break, my guy.
Point Break. There you go. It's a good one. It's the first Batman movie to hint at being in the same universe as Superman. Today, we're all kind of accustomed to the comic book based cinematic universes. Multiverses are becoming commonplace. Back in the 90s, that was still a radical concept. Although the studio Warner Brothers had already made movies about other great DC comic icons such as Superman, there was no suggestion that Batman was actually part of the same story world at first. That changed with a single line of dialogue in Batman Forever when Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne tells Chris O'Donnell's Dick Grayson that his old traveling circus is halfway to Metropolis. So the direct mention of Superman's hometown marks the first time a live-action DC movie alluded to its superheroes coexisting in the same universe. So simply by Batman saying Metropolis, they're like, all right, Batman and Superman exist in this universe together. And of course, this is going to be my closing statement here. I wasn't going to walk away from this episode without addressing the obvious.
Do it.
The obvious nipples that everybody knows of. So we're going to talk about bat nips here to close this out. So the bat suit had nipples. There's no other way around it. It's kind of just like it was out there. They even focused in on that chest plate at one point where you just see nips. You're like, I guess. So in a big interview piece to promote the film just prior to its release, Jim Carrey, who played the Riddler in the movie, recalled that it pissed Bob Kane off. Later, Bob Kane, the co-creator with Bill Finger of Batman, Bob Kane was walking around going, I never put nipples on a bat suit. Whoever heard of nipples on a bat suit? So he was like this old man just walking around the studio just going, this is stupid. Who would put nipples on the bat suit? So whose decision was it? Director Joel Schumacher's ultimately. In the same article, he said that Bob Kane doesn't understand why Chris O'Donnell's Robin had an earring and Batman had nipples. I told him, it's the 90s, Bob. Everybody's pumped up. So
everybody has nipples.
That was
Bob.
the direct quote from him. Schumacher added that I wanted a very sexy, very sensual, very body-hugging suit. It's my Gotham City, and if I want Batman to have nipples, he's gonna have nipples. That is a direct quote. So I did not make that up or pull that from any unnamed source. That is a direct quote from the director himself. And with that, this is my review for the haters for Batman Forever.
For the haters too, bat nips.
Bat nips.
No.
Cutting edge.
It still makes no goddamn sense.
It doesn't make any sense, but we're all living in Joel Schumacher's world where he wanted
I recently I followed the Batman subreddit.
Yeah.
And someone posted a picture of the suit from Batman Forever. Like, I think it was just a few days ago. And they're like, nipples aside, like, what do we don't like about the suit?
You can't go aside from the nipples. The nipples are the focal point.
Look at it again. I didn't notice. I've never noticed this until someone pointed out. The abs, like the built-in abs on the suit, are like nipple high.
Are they?
Like they start super high. They're like not where your abs are. Yeah.
Your rib cage's just abs
now. The whole suit makes no sense.
Anatomically, just ass backwards.
It's weird. It's so weird.
We'll have to take another look at that.
Yeah, I'm glad, that's good on Schumacher, for sticking with his artistic vision.
It's his world, and we're all just living in it.
We're just living in it. Fucking
That's
Bob.
Right, yeah.
Bob Kane.
Bob Kane just walking around going, who would put nipples on a bat suit?
Look, if he had such a problem with the bat nips, he'd grab his Batman, turn the other way, he could run faster, jump higher, frolic harder.
You're damn right he could. Deuces.